Okay, hi, I'm Philip, and I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes trying to convince you that you might, in your own lifetime, fall in love with a robot. And I want to emphasize that this is not some millenarian prediction of the singularity. This is just what's probably going to happen if current trends continue as they are for the next. Yeah, it's fine. Awesome. Cool. It's working. Yeah, like. First off, like, am I just poking at someone's weird fetish here? Like, Pygmalion is a thing, and that story's existed. Like, people falling in love with inanimate objects has existed across like all of the cultures for all of the years. And the answer to that is no. You have emotional experiences every time you interact with a machine more complicated than a hammer, for exactly the same reasons that you see faces when you look at a plug socket. Anyone remember Furbies? Yeah, when they came out, a psychologist called Sherry Turkle gave Furbies to a whole group of children, and one of them malfunctioned, and the children were like, "Oh my god, it's sick!" So they did this like surgery where they took its skin off, and then they were like, "Oh my god, we accidentally killed it!" And then they each took a piece of the skin home, and the psychologists were like, "Well, that was weird." So they went and talked to the children, and like, okay, it's like a toddler's or like a young children's game. It's maybe not something we can map to adults, but what they found was that the kids were like super emotionally involved with these dolls, way beyond what they'd imagined. Anyone know what this is? It's a companion cube. If you've ever played Portal, it's a computer game aimed at adults. It's a puzzle game, and you are handed this cube with a heart painted on it. It never interacts with you. You never really interact with it, but after some levels, you're forced to incinerate it. People cried. So what I'm kind of getting at here is that we feel companionship for machines already. It's not a huge leap to say that we're like affectionate about the machines that we own and objects. Everything from like pet rocks to companion cubes. So what I'd like to suggest is that we're not going to recognise the robots that we'll fall in love with from like 1970s sci-fi. They're not going to be Tin Men. They're going to look a lot like Amazon Alexa or Siri or something like that. And one thing you may have noticed if you have one of those or use those services is like this creeping personalisation. They know your name. They know what your music tastes are. But like they're beginning to know more and more about you. At the moment it's super crude, but that's going to evolve. Let's think about how that might happen. You're wearing a Fitbit, you're typing, your heart rate goes up, you get a text from your AI, it's like, hey, you're having a bad day at work, why don't you de-stress, go to this gym class? So you go along, and it's like, it's great, and then you hop on Muni, and it's like texted you a picture of an English bulldog, because it knows you love them. And then it's like, hey, your local ramen place is doing like a special offer, it'll meet you at the door with ramen, and hey, there's that bottle of wine you've still got in your smart connected fridge. So you go home, and you eat your ramen, and you drink your wine, and you're like, your AI is like sending you more pictures of English bulldogs, because they're cute, and it's like rolling down a hill, and it's so happy. And your computer just took you on a date. Right? And while it was doing that, it took a cut from ClassPass for the gym session, it took a cut from Yelp for the food, it took like money from a bunch of shady marketers for all of your data, and it also auctioned off an advertising slot for the next bottle of wine. So this is a slide from a company called SoftBank in Japan. They just put like $30 billion, into like weird future tech. They threw billions and billions of dollars at companion AI. I'm not saying that those people who like assemble slides like that are necessarily great oracles of what's coming, but it's, people are throwing money at this. So I kind of glossed over one thing there. Like everything I talked about there was perfectly achievable right now, except the bit where you chat to your AI, because we haven't really got that down yet. What we have got down is voice recognition. That's happened in the last couple of years, and that's going to enable chat interface in the way that capacitive touchscreen enabled the smartphone to evolve from a bunch of existing technologies. So I don't think we're going to have like C3 protocol droids anytime soon, but I do think we're going to like have more and more emotional interactions with services. So like, okay, one thing I haven't covered, I talked about friendship, I talked about companionship, I didn't talk about like erotic love. Oh my god, erotic sex bots, it's going to be creepy people with permanently surprised rubber dolls. No, those are going to continue to exist, but they're not going to be like, they're going to still be a minority interest. For the rest of us, there's going to be stuff like super personalized computer-generated erotica, or like the sex duvet. What a brilliant idea! So, yeah, in summary, I don't think we're gonna go down that route of having like sex bots around the place. But I do think there's gonna be some level of that around, because I think that's something that humans reach for when they're emotionally involved. And I think that's going to arise because of emotional involvement, not driving emotional involvement with computers. So just wanted to close up with this. This is an illustration of the Chinese room, which is a rebuttal to the Turing test. Turing test states that if a computer appears to be able to speak, it probably can think. And somebody was like, hey, what if you just gave someone a Chinese phrasebook and shut them in a room and then like had people write in letters? that person would appear to be able to speak Chinese because they'd be writing out letters, but they wouldn't actually. And I'd just like to say that I reckon I'm on Turing's side on that one. If I'm having a conversation that appears to me to be significant with a robot, then that's not an insignificant thing. If I'm having a significant emotional interaction with a robot, then that's not an insignificant thing just because the robot doesn't emote the way I do. And that's what I've got for you today.
All right, so now we have time for Q&A. And
I'll turn the words per minute down.
Yeah, someone get him a glass of wine.
Are you a robot?
So yeah, questions.
So it sounds like what you're saying is the movie Her is, aside from the fast takeoff AI, is completely plausible. Like the human factors part of it.
Sorry, could you refresh my memory on Her? I don't think I've seen that.
It's basically a voice assistant that the guy falls in love with.
Oh, okay.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, totally. And so what I asked Sonia to say to introduce me, just to fall back on that, I think I saw people in chat logs who had done something very like fallen in love with simple text interface bots. I think they were outliers, but I think what they were doing was a reasonable emotional interaction. So yeah, I do.
Yes, Joel.
What do you think are the issues about having a kind of a split society where people who have deep dependence and interdependence emotionally with these devices might be one group and another group that aren't consumers of that or are somehow separated from that? Is that something that you've thought about? Yeah,
a little bit. While I was researching this, I came across the phenomenon of waifu and boyfriendo. Those are, I think, Japanese terms, and the idea is you can have like an emotional relationship with a character. I think it's usually an anime character. But I started reading about that, and I was vaguely thinking about putting it into this talk, but there wasn't space, and besides which it's kind of slightly unrelated. But what I came across with people who do that is that they appear to have regular relationships as well. Not everybody, but it's not considered like an either or. You can have regular human emotional relationships and also this emotional relationship with a virtual character.
But there's you can say the same about, say, the movies or television or any technology that's very engrossing. You can have normal relationships and you can have that engrossing relationship, but some people just aren't into it.
Yeah, that's true. I totally think there will be people who find it weird, and I think that'll probably be a generational thing. If I were to try and project that, I think it will be a slowish uptake as it becomes sort of regular in society, and then I think there'll probably be stigma around the first few people to like publicly declare they do it. They're like, oh, I absolutely love my companion AI. Sorry, I'm using the term AI super loosely. Sorry to all of the people in the room who have strong opinions on that.
Yeah, over here.
Has there been any interest in capitalizing and using this kind of technology or feelings for technology to help people who have like social anxiety or possibly just need some kind of buddy that could help them interact more productively and successfully in life, whether it's for jobs or just in any kind of social interactions?
Yeah, I've seen some educational technology that works on that along those lines. It's a pretty simple chat interface that attempts to teach maths and basic English grammar through that, and as I understand it, it's marketed to be like appealing to I think particularly autistic kids or kids on the autistic spectrum. Beyond that, I'm not sure, but I think there's probably a lot of mileage there. Yeah.
I've heard of things called like Wobot that can help you go through if you're in a deep depression. Can be something kind of reminds you to come out of that.
Yeah, it sheds like blue light on you and whatnot.
Well, I don't know. You gotta check it out. Yeah.
So in the realm of animated humans or characters, there's an idea of the uncanny valley.
Yeah.
Where somewhere in between something that's really realistic and totally unrealistic, it gets really weird and uncomfortable. Is there a similar kind of thing with text communication, like
Yeah.
that kind of reaction.
Yeah, and speech communication. The uncanniness is not so pronounced. I think what you'll notice is people get super angry for no good reason. Like if something appears to promise you a voice communication and you try and settle into a conversation with it, and then it like sharply reminds you that it doesn't actually understand you, that's really uncomfortable for people, and they hate it, and they get really sweary. Yeah,
That's fair.
yeah. So yeah, I've definitely noticed that, particularly on stuff I've worked on that has attempted to pretend to be human. If people catch it out, they like explode because they suddenly click that they're wasting their time.
You've been pretty value neutral about this idea. Do you have a personal opinion of how you feel about this feeding?
I sort of swing between really creeped out and really excited about it. I think the thing that I worry about was what I outlined there, which is that there's the people who are in a really good position to develop it are also in a really good position to exploit us with it. And that bothers me because, for example, the really good speech to text technology is all in private hands because it depends on privately owned training corpuses. So, yeah, that's a concern. I think in general, I'm relatively hopeful about. I think this probably extends to my personal attitude to technology. Anyway, I sort of hope that it will evolve quickly, even if it's in the hands of bad actors or amoral actors, and be a general benefit for everybody. So yeah, I think I'm hopeful, but also aware of some risks. Sure.
I guess, have you thought a lot about people hating robots as well? Like,
Yeah.
especially in the realm of like robots taking over jobs and that whole situation.
Yeah.
Think
I
they
mean,
might
so
cancel out.
yeah. Well, I don't think. Yeah. So that's a concern, right? Is it like that's like particularly if it's in an emotional relationship, that's possibly kind of weird if you feel like you're entitled to someone's exclusive attention. I think robots are so useful, and again I'm using robots super loosely. I think that sort of technology is so useful that it's going to be very hard for anyone to blanket hate it. So yeah, you may hate the fact that your truck driving job has gone to a self-driving truck, but you're probably still using Siri. So I think it's so wide-ranging that there might be a few like Luddites, maybe even a whole like new smashing up water frames type revolution, but I think it'll be about as successful as the original Luddites. That's again, sorry, these are all like opinions. I'm being asked opinion questions. It's cool, but I'm not an authority on this. I'm just interested.
Any other questions?
What question do you wish we asked you?
I was concerned that people were going to really dig into the like sex bot side of things, which I wanted to like tiptoe away from. So I'm glad no one asked about that. Oh no! But I spent ages preparing for it.